right. Hello, everybody. It is last Monday of January 2026. And so we're doing our last Monday monthly marketing chats. And we thought it was an apt time, seeing as we both may be somewhat feeling this, to talk about being overwhelmed and underbooked at the same time and how to work on your business while still bringing money in.
Yeah, that time of year.
Business feeling this January.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, every year, January always feels like it hits you, especially because if you're anything like me, you're so busy through the September, October months doing outdoor shoots. And then you get into the, November, December holiday shoots in the studio and rush. And then you have all these personal obligations. And then you hit January and you're like, oh, yay, I'm going to take a deep breath because it's January and I have all these ideas and things I want to change this year. I'm going to change my pricing and I'm going to build a new website and I'm going to change my CRM and I'm going to do all these things and it's going to be so great. And then about this time, like the second or third week in January, you go, wait a minute, I haven't made any money this month. How do I still make money and work on all these things and take that like time to relax and figure out what's next for the year?
Right, because I think we all know that feeling when if you have cycles in your business, you've been so busy that what you need, as well as working on your business and bringing money in, is like a little bit of time to relax so that you don't feel the burnout of it once you hit a busy time again. So I guess what we wanted to do today was talk about ways we could even some of that roller coaster out that I think, even though I'm not a photographer, I feel it in my business as well, which is you get busy with client work and you forget to market. Then you get quiet with client work and you're all in on marketing, but as soon as you start to get clients again, you drop it. And so there's just this constant kind of up and down. And I think it's why we often feel behind in our marketing, is that in an ideal world, we should be doing the marketing all the time, whether we're busy or quiet. So we thought we might talk about some of those strategies, because that sounds great in theory, but it's really, really hard in reality. So we would talk about some of the strategies that we've used to make sure that we are continuing to market our own businesses, this business, different things like that, while we're, regardless of how busy we are with client work.
Yeah. And the thing with photography is it is pretty seasonal. You're going to have a little bit of a roller coaster no matter what, unless you really are truly a pure newborn photographer and you only do studio shoots. In that case, you should have babies all year long. I think that there is still a little bit of a roller coaster in months like January, because you always have the families that are, they've spent too much money at Christmas and over the holidays, and then they don't have the budget in January or February when their baby's actually born. So if they didn't plan in advance, you might have lulls like that. But for the most part, you should, in theory, have steady business all year long if you only do studio sessions. But if you also do outdoor sessions, of course, you're going to have more families that come in the spring and even more families that come in the fall because they want their holiday shoots and, holiday cards and Christmas cards and that sort of thing. So if you can find a way to balance that schedule out a little bit, it feels a lot less overwhelming when you do get to January and have to figure out what's next. And I think the thing that has really helped me over the years is creating these marketing campaigns that I can reuse over and over and over. And we've talked about this in other last Mondays where, we talked about building out your calendar and what does it look like each quarter, and some of the different marketing strategies that we always talk about is like model calls, mini shoots, limited editions, seasonal sessions, vouchers, with silent auctions and that sort of thing, and partnerships with other local businesses, giveaways and contests, and then book projects or calendar projects would be kind of like the sixth thing. And I try to have a balance of those things all year long so that it doesn't look like I'm always running a giveaway. It doesn't look like I'm always doing mini shoots, because I don't want anybody to think that I'm just the cheap photographer that always offers these discount things. But you do kind of need to have something coming up so that you can be marketing for those things, and you have this rolling booking system that's working for you even when you are really busy.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of really interesting things there to think about and we'll talk about them at different times, but one is maybe how you can be bringing money in your business separate to when you are doing the work. So I know I've done that in the past where maybe if it's for newborn sessions that are coming up in January and February, is there some way that you can create a Christmas gift someone can give them that's a voucher that contributes to the cost? So can some of that cost be put into December? And so there's lots of different ways where we can look at like, how do we bring money in separate to doing the photography? And I know even you talk about, for example, I think you mentioned, maybe it was the last time we did this, that you might suggest, do people want to sign up now for a discount for like your fall sessions? Is that what did we talk about last time?
Yep. Yeah, we did. Well, my big thing that we've talked about a million times is I always do my chunky baby contest at the beginning of the year. And this year, my plan is to offer a discounted fall session when they book it at the same time as their chunky baby appointment. So it brings in some of that fall income, at least the deposits in this slower time of year. It also guarantees that I've got people on my schedule for the fall, which is exciting. So that's going to be something new that I'm playing with. I've never tried that before, and we'll see how it works. I think every year you should be kind of tweaking things a little bit here and there and see, how can I make this a little better? How can I make people more engaged with this thing? What's another way that I can try to keep things going? I've tried running Facebook ads for things in the past. Sometimes it works great and sometimes it doesn't. For some reason, every time I try it for like spring sessions, it's crickets. I don't know what it is about spring. I just can't get people to book in the spring versus in the fall. It's so easy. And like I did Santa baby sessions this year. They were just like micro mini newborns. And those were super easy, so easy to book. So there's things like that kind of are just trial and error. And like, how can you do these things? But like you just said, like you can bring in some of that income for sessions that are happening in the future, even if you're just taking like $100 deposit sort of thing, if you book 10 mini shoots for March or April, that's $1,000 in your pocket that you have during a month that otherwise you wouldn't have had that $1,000. And sometimes that can be the difference between paying rent and not.
Yeah, exactly. Or making the business feel like it's worthwhile. I mean, ideally you look at your income or your revenue across the whole year, but if in the reality is you need to pay groceries, you need to pay a daycare, but you've got rent for your studio, then you still need money to be coming in to pay those things month to month.
Yeah.
One of the other things I was going to say was, when we were talking about the trial and error, is that there needs to be a little more than one trial. I think there's a common sort of misconception that people who are starting their businesses is that they try something and it doesn't work and they throw it out and they try an entirely new thing, which means now they're spending all that time and effort planning, thinking, documenting, trying to figure out how they're going to do something. And that's a lot of work. But for you, you just know spring is not a great time, but it took more than one go for you to know that spring is a good time, I'm guessing.
Yeah. And it might be that I need to do some sort of model call or something in the spring to get images. I don't have a ton of spring images because I've never been very successful at booking spring outdoor sessions. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe I need to have better imagery that can go with my ads. And then in the future, that might work better. So that's one of those things that I would go, okay, let's work backwards here. If I want to book spring sessions next year, maybe this year I run a model call during that spring window where I get those clients in that are going to do, get me those images that I need for the following year. So I think sometimes you have to kind of back your way into what it is that you actually need. Now, I don't know that that's going to solve my spring problem, but it would also bring in models. And if you run a profitable model call, that can be another way to bring some good money into your business. It doesn't have to be like you just did free shoots all spring.
Well, and I kind of have a theory, and I don't know if this is right or not, but when I think about that a lot of people are getting their family photos with the idea within the year that they might use them for Christmas cards, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that for my family, when I have kids who are 10 and 14, if we have a spring image, it doesn't matter. They've not changed wildly from now till December. But if you have a newborn in January, yes, you're going to want as up-to-date a picture as possible when it comes to Christmas cards. So I wonder, it might just be that for your business, spring is just not going to be a good time when you factor those two things together. Or it might be that you haven't found the right technique, but you can't know that until you experiment within one thing for a while, and also then say, okay, what makes most sense? What's like the logical next step to take?
Yeah. And I think with newborn photographers, if you do offer outdoor or maternity, like that's the easy way to get that baby in the door. So if you might offer maternity mini shoots, or spring maternity mini shoots for that matter, because then that's going to book you summer babies, because you're getting those people in, you're backing into that thing. To get the babies, you need the pregnant moms, and maybe they don't want to spend a ton of money on their maternity shoot. Maybe you're even offering a free maternity shoot when you book your newborn session, or something like that, that's getting those people into your world. And maybe the maternity shoots are only bringing in a couple $100, but then you're getting the baby because now they like you and trust you and have seen your studio and understand who you are as a photographer. And they go, oh my gosh, I have to have her photograph my baby. Or even just that they want their images to go together. And so they do, both at the same time. So that's another way that like maybe you're not getting that full session rate that you would have gotten for just the newborn. Like my maternities never bring it in as much money. They just don't want as many images, I've found. And almost everyone is like, well, I'm not gonna put my pregnant picture, my pregnancy pictures on the wall. Like it's very hard to convince them that they want more maternity photos. Like 5 to 10 images is plenty, versus a newborn, they can't say no, and then you get those bigger packages. At least that's my experience. But another way that I wanted to mention is, I know this time of year, a lot of people talk about changing their pricing. That's always like a big, well, sales are down, I'm feeling the pinch, and so I should bring my pricing up. And I always kind of think like, well, this is your slow time. This is maybe not the best time to bring your prices up. I always think that, it's probably better to do a pricing change like right before fall, when you've got people that are dying to work with you and will pay whatever. And then that can bleed into your January and February for the next year. But I'm not totally convinced that January is the time to change your pricing. However, I do think that you can change your pricing structure without changing your actual pricing. And one of the things that I did 2 or 3 years ago now is create a base package. So it's basically like my minimum that I require them to spend on a newborn shoot. It's 5 images. And for me, it's $5.90. And then they pay their session fees on top of that. So like for my middle ground newborn session, they pay $9.90. And so it's a good chunk of change for me that they have to pay in advance. And I get paid, like if I'm booking a March, April, May baby right now, I'm getting that $1,000 for their booking in January. And then when they do their session, it's not like I've already been paid that $1,000, but most people don't stick with that small package. And the other psychology behind it is like, they've already spent that money. That's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. So a lot of times they spend more because they're like, oh, well, it's only $2,000, whatever. But if it had only been $3,000, maybe they would have backed down to another package below. So there's some things there that you can, like without changing your pricing, reconfigure things so that maybe they're paying a little bit more upfront. They're guaranteeing you that smallest sale. And then, then you don't have somebody that just comes and does the session and decides to ghost you when it comes time to the ordering appointment. There's lots of ways that it kind of like protects your income, but also in times like this, it gets you those that money in your bank when you're not necessarily doing a shoot for a couple more months.
Yeah, and I think talking about the idea of, I totally agree, like don't be putting your prices up or question if it's right to put your prices up when it's a slow season and that people struggle to spend money because they just spent a ton of money the month before for Christmas. But you could, for example, if you put your prices up at fall, which I think is a really smart time when the demand is higher, you could even send out an email to your existing clients now saying, if you book now, I'll honor this year's prices, but the price will be going up if you book after August, whatever,
that's a great way to go. Book early and get the old pricing. Or, you can also run like gift card sales, like that sort of thing, like, you know, buy $100 gift card and you get $150 towards your fall family session or something. Like you're buying it in January, you know, Black Friday in January sale or something like that, that gets you that income now, because that's really what you want, is you want to have more of that during these slower times of years, but then also, you know, get some of those marketing campaigns going so that then you have clients throughout the year, and you're not trying to do it on the fly. You're not like throwing something together and putting it up on a Facebook ad and just hoping that maybe you'll get somebody to bite. There's definitely like a strategy there that needs to be done. A strategy that needs to be done strategically.
It needs to be, well, it's a little longer term. And I guess that was another thing that I was going to raise was, we've been talking a little bit about like how much can you just bring in this month, and then there's that bigger picture of how much revenue do you bring in a year. Revenue being not just your profit, but like all the money you just make, any money that clients pay you. And not that we are an accounting kind of profit type podcast, but thinking about how much you need to make across the year, and do you need a certain amount each month out of your business? Or can you strategically take money from August and put it in a business savings account, so that when January comes, you've got money to pay yourself? But it's, you know, you took that money in during your busy season. But if that just goes into your own personal bank account and you spend it, then is that going to help you with the roller coaster of the months of busy and slow seasons?
Yeah, the first couple of years that I had really big falls, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. I have so much money in my bank account. And I'd see these like big Black Friday sales on camera gear, or lighting, or dresses for my client closet. And I'd be like, oh, I've got plenty of money to spend. And then come January and February, I'd be like, oh my gosh, there's no one in here. What do I do? And had I just been more strategic with that money when it was in, I would have felt a lot more at ease come January and February. And you know, I always follow profit first as a way of like paying myself and paying the business and making sure I've got enough operating expenses. And there's actually a new profit first for photographers out there. If anybody doesn't know that strategy, it's great. She uses the same framework and has worked with the guy that wrote the original book, and then like really honed in on how to do it for photographers, which is pretty cool.
Definitely think that's what, and depending on where you are in your business, you may not have separate business bank accounts, in which case I highly encourage you to think about those kind of things. Go read that book Profit First, especially the photographers specific. But the other thing that this made me think about was, there are certain things that we have to spend, because the revenue is not just our profit, right? It's all the money we get in from clients, but then there's the expenses that we have to pay out. And if you're a beginning photographer, or you're starting to want to be more professional in how you work, you may not pay for an email management system. You may not pay for a CRM. How are you sending your invoices? Are you just making them in Google? Are you just asking people for money? Have you set up something like Stripe, which comes with costs? And so I think there are, for example, we have lots of different systems you can use that you pay for, not a whole lot of money, but you pay for, that help write those kind of documents for you. So I think in January is a really good time to think, what do I want to invest in this year? And then when makes sense. Like a lot of Black Friday sales happen, and that's actually a great time for photographers, because you're probably bringing in more money then. So are there things you want to earmark? Like, oh, when it comes to Black Friday, I want to investigate really investing in like a CRM this year, or like a way you manage your photographs, and like how you show those to your clients, things like that. Are there systems you want? Like, we have different packages that show you how to do these different marketing processes. Do you want to say, when I bring in a bit more money in the summer, I'm going to buy one of those, so next January I have something easy to implement? So like thinking through what expenses you want to spend through the year, so that you don't feel that you have to spend that in January, for example, just because you see it. You can go, that's a thing that I will buy in the fall when I have money for it.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, you know, we talk to our clients about saving for their newborn shoots and budgeting and everything, but then we don't do it ourselves. And I think that's so important. You know, if you have a mentor that you want to work with, you want, you know, personalized guidance. So one of the things that I did just, you know, over the last 3 weeks since January started, is I really dug into, what am I spending on everything, and like getting really honest with my numbers and like how many subscriptions I have and do I need them all and what does it all add up to each month. And one of the big decisions that I made for the year is to change my CRM, which is a massive undertaking. But ultimately it will save me about $350 a month, like once I'm all said and done, which is huge, right? And so I think that's another thing to consider when you're sitting here going, okay, I'm overwhelmed and underpaid. Now I am putting this major task on myself by switching CRMs, but I do think that it's going to be worth it because in the long run, it's going to save me substantial amount of money over the years. But I do now need to budget because I really want to hire somebody to do a lot of the setup for me. But I can't just turn around and spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to hire somebody to set it up. That's not something that I budgeted for. So now, if I want to do that, I need to figure out how to do that throughout the year. And for me, the way that I go about that is a lot of times coming up with like, okay, I need to make $5 extra grand. How am I going to do that? Am I going to do it through a mini shoot day? Am I going to do it through a model call? Am I going to do some sort of gift card sale? Like, how am I going to get that money in now so that I can, or, you know, over the next 3 months, so that then I can hire that CRM expert to set it all up for me, that's going to save me all this money over the course of the next couple years.
We talked about this before privately, not on one of our calls, but I think you did a really smart thing, which is you kept the existing CRM running for a year, and when we talk about the cost, there's also the time cost. Instead of making yourself super overwhelmed by saying, and the deadline for this one runs out in 3 weeks, I have to have everything moved over, you've said, I'll give myself the calendar year to sort this out, which also means, you know, obviously you'd like someone, an expert in, I'm sure, to fix it as soon as you possibly can. But it does mean you can say, wow, well, could I budget across 6 months for this? Could I make $1,000 extra a month and hire somebody in June? Like, these are the sort of decisions you have to start thinking about, is like, how will I make the money and across what time period? And, or if you're going to DIY it, how many hours a month how many hours in total do I need to spend on this project? And is it realistic in January to spend 60 hours on this? If not, like, how many hours a week or a month is realistic, and how can I spread it?
And tie that back to, is it realistic while also marketing to not let all my clients fall through the cracks while I'm trying to move my CRM? You know, like, this is like all the things that we're discussing is like finding that balance of, you know, moving forward, but also, you know, not forgetting that you also still have to market. You also still have to post to Instagram, as annoying as that is, and write your blog and all the hats that we wear that are going to keep your business going when you're trying to also work on this other stuff.
And I think one of the other things about overwhelm is that we don't always know when our clients are going to go up and down. Like, sometimes suddenly you get a little influx of extra people, which is great. But if you have overwhelmed yourself with marketing or business tasks like moving a CRM, the last thing you want is to give a bad client experience to those people, because you're too overwhelmed and you just don't have time and you don't see the emails coming in and you forget about this, that, and the next thing, and you're harassed when you turn up and you're late giving back the images. Like, you have to give, when you have clients, that you have to make sure they get the right experience the whole time. And so if you're going to try and do transitions like this, make shifts in pricing, you really thought about how you're going to describe it, like that communication to a client, especially if something is different to how they did it before, or just how you're used to talking about it, then really thinking through how you're going to communicate that is like so important.
Yeah. And I think that the other thing to think about when you're doing all this stuff is, like, just because you need to bring income in doesn't mean you should take every single job that comes your way. I think it's really important to stick to your lane, stick to what you really truly want, because like you said, like, you need to have a good customer experience. So like, if I went out and I got 4 headshot clients because I need to make some extra money and I brought them into the studio, they wouldn't have a great experience, because I would be so annoyed that I had to do those headshots. I'd be so bored and like, oh God, I gotta do this thing. And drag my feet over there.
Your studio has a good head in it. Like, it would be super, like, where do they sit? It's not like set up for shots, right? So it would feel odd to them. It probably wouldn't feel like a premium experience. Whereas you bring a family in with a baby and you have this bed for them to relax on, that's a premium experience. So the way you have your system set up works for one type of audience, but not for the other.
Right. And I think, I mean, it all comes down to like, if you do headshots and you enjoy doing headshots and that's a side gig for you that you want to get more of, by all means, go do it. But for me, that's not something that I'm interested in booking. So yes, it would pad my pockets during a low time of the year, but it wouldn't get me anything. It wouldn't get me like, so we've talked about like vouchers and doing silent auctions and that sort of thing. Great way to go, especially in like the fall and sometimes like in the late spring when schools are kind of coming to the end of their year. But don't give it to the wrong school. Don't give it to the wrong business. Don't just give it to anybody that asks you to, because I've made that mistake before and given it to a friend who had a high school senior. And so it was a fundraiser for their baseball team. So I gave away a family shoot. Well, the people at that fundraiser all had high schoolers. Yeah. So what did I book? A family with high schoolers, which is not what I want. That's not going to get me anything. It's going to get me that one client. That's it. And maybe some referrals to other people that also have high schoolers, which I don't
also not what you wanted.
Right? So it doesn't do me any good. Whereas like if I do a model call for someone, maybe I don't get paid my full, average rate for a newborn session. Maybe they only spend $1,000 with me instead of $3,000. But that person has 12 friends that are all having babies this year, and she tells them how great that experience was. Well, now that $1,000 session just got me all these other clients. It paid it forward to more things that I want instead of more things I don't want.
And you have images for your website and portfolio and blog and Instagram that relate to the type of thing that you want to book, so for your marketing, that's really important. I think the other thing when it comes to, when you were saying like, don't do the headshots, is what else could you be spending your time on? Could you be spending time building a marketing plan and starting to launch it on socials and putting out ads or however you do your marketing campaigns to bring in good fit clients, right? Because you've only got a limited number of hours that you can spend on this. And we know that overwhelm feeling, but like a big part of why we started this business was we don't want you spending all like 24 hours a day on your laptop. You should be able to go and take time off. So if you only have so many hours in the day to work in your business or on your business, what's the most valuable thing that you can be doing? And that's part of that, like, can you pay yourself in some other way so you don't feel the pressure to make a wrong turn and take yourself further and further away from where you really want to be, because those ripples will like ripple through the rest of the year in your business.
I just think it's so important to like really think about where you want to be, who you want to have in your studio, who you want to work with, and then have everything align in those ways. And it makes the most sense for what you want in the future as well as what you want right now, not just, paying yourself to pay yourself. And you don't want to just do all this busy work. It's, having a plan makes such a big difference.
And I think part of like, there's so many parts involved in thinking about working on your business, and that being marketing and campaigns. So some of this stuff we're talking about, where we're saying really take your time and think about it, is more branding and like positioning. Like, who are you? Who is your business? And when we talk about you don't want to be moving away from where you want to go, is like, what is that bullseye that you're trying to hit? And being really clear about that, what that bullseye is, and talking about it. But then there's a separate thing, which is all the busy work that's involved in a marketing campaign. Is how much of that can you not have to do from scratch, because it's busy work. Like, spend time on the strategy, but is there a way you can implement the marketing that doesn't involve you creating it from absolute fresh? So that is reusing marketing campaigns that have worked for you in the past, or tweaking them, right? So for you, that spring one, if it doesn't normally work, maybe you try it again this year, but you take what you have and you look at it and you say, how can I adapt it? You're not rewriting every email for an ad from scratch. You're looking at what you already have and how can you make tweaks to it.
And maybe it's a different campaign. Like if you tried mini shoots and that didn't work, try a model call, or try, a seasonal thing where like you're at a apple orchard or a cherry orchard or whatever. And you're doing something that's like a very limited edition thing at a certain place, or, maybe you are doing a book project that has like a giveaway, or not a giveaway, but like a, contribution to some sort of nonprofit, or something that like gets people to say yes to something that they maybe otherwise wouldn't do at that time of the year. It's just because one thing didn't work doesn't mean other things won't work. So you have to just think.
we think of the different marketing types. They're like 6 main types. They're like containers, and the way that you get that container out and explain it to people is the same. But what's inside the container can be a bit different. So you can have it at a different time of year. Instead of it being Santa sessions, it's an apple orchard. Instead of it being a calendar, it's a book, right? Like, I think as you start to see, and you have done all these 6 variations loads of times, enough that you can see that the fundamental marketing campaign is the same. You're just tweaking the details to make it work for your business, or to try something new to see if it'll work in a different way. So if you have run a book campaign before, you can turn that into a calendar campaign without too much work, or you can turn it into, like, who knows what that might be that you shift it, but you already have the foundations in place, that it's not that hard to create all the assets and the things that you need for it.
Yeah, I think the foundations are so important, because it really is kind of like a Mad Libs sort of thing for like creating a marketing campaign. Like, this is how it's structured, and then fill in the details of all the specifics for that one. And I think sometimes people get overwhelmed with all the possibilities of how to do it. And well, but I'm a pet photographer, so how do I make that work for me? Because I don't actually work with newborn babies. Like, it's the same thing. It doesn't matter. Are you doing, for newborn photographers, we want the pregnant moms that are going to get us the babies. For wedding photographers, we want the engaged couples that's going to get us the wedding. Like, you kind of have to just figure out, like, how do you back into these things? How do you make it work for your specific genre and what you want your studio to be filled with,
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I think that's where right now we're working on a cool project, which is to help you with that strategy part of, like, which container do you need? And then you can make the container work for you. So we have it up and coming soon. It's not quite ready to go, but we will, and we'll add a link to this video once it's up and running. We will have a GPT, a chat that helps you, like, basically you get to ask Paige the questions and she will help you figure out your strategy, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and then for each of them, we have a little cheat sheet, which gives you, like, this is how you structure it. This is how this works. This is how you can make this successful. And this is how you can screw it up. All the kind of pitfalls that people fall into with why something doesn't work. And maybe it's something that you've tried in the past and you're like, I hate model calls. I won't do them because they don't work. Well, maybe something on this cheat sheet can help you figure out why that would be. And I think a lot of times we are quick to blame our clients and don't really look internally into, like, what could we have done differently to make it better for them. And I think being aware of the psychology of so much of it and the communication, you and I, Jill, are always talking about, like, how do we communicate these things to our clients, and how do we get them to actually read it? How do we get them to hear it? How do we say it in a way, or how many times do we need to say it so that they actually understand? How many times do we need to send that pricing link? Because that's how you're successful. When you communicate with your clients and they actually understand what it is that they're signing up for, they have the ability to say, you know what, this isn't actually something that I'm interested in doing, or heck yeah, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want. And then you don't have this, like, misunderstanding. You don't have people coming in thinking that they got all the images and really they just get one, all those little things that,
like,
that make you mad.
That happen. And I think just like that, this kind of sense with you, like, is spring the right time to work it or not? If you've tried a model call once and it didn't work for you, that just means you tried it once and it didn't work. It doesn't mean it isn't going to work.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of, all the pitfalls because you've tried them all. And there really is only these 6 types of ways to do it. It can feel overwhelming to be like, well, maybe there's something else to try, but there's so often it's a variation of something that you've already tried before that's going to unlock what works for your business.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times people just don't go all the way with these things. They don't have the full structure done. They, like we said earlier, like, they're throwing things together at the last minute because they need bookings, and maybe they, didn't write up the, like, welcome to Glean & Co email that, like, gives them all the details, and then people are lost and confused, and then they didn't spend money on the upsells because they didn't understand them. And so when you kind of take this quiet time to figure out, one, your booking calendar throughout the year, what are you going to do all year long? Like, what is that going to look like? to how much money are you spending every month? How much money do you actually need to bring in each month so that you actually cover all your bills? Like, is there some way that you can reduce that? Like, is there a CRM that you can switch to? Is there a different email platform? For me, a big part of it was like my text messaging was costing me a fortune. And the new method is going to save me $150 just on that. So, analyzing your expenditures and knowing what your bottom line is for every single month. Like, okay, January, I have to have $2,000 worth of expenses or $5,000, whatever it is for you. And how am I going to cover that? Where is that money coming from? Is it coming from October sales? And that's just where it's coming from every year. And then you set that aside. Or is there something that you can do during January, like you do your annual gift card sale in January for fall sessions, or your chunky baby contest, or something that's bringing in that money that you can guarantee is going to at least cover your expenses and pay you for the month, rather than just sitting here going, oh God, no one's coming.
Yeah, well, and then there's one other thing that I wanted to mention about that, which if you've not asked before for a sale well in advance of when it happens, to be wary of, because Paige, I know that you and I both can feel this way, which is that someone comes in, it's a little light in, let's say, November. I don't know, that doesn't really make sense, but let's say November. And then like 3 people come in, but they bought gift cards in January. So you're not getting any money off those, or you're maybe, and it depends how you sell, right? If you're all inclusive, you're not getting more money off those people. But you have to treat those clients as valuably and importantly as you would if they were giving you the money right there on the day. Like, as far as they're concerned, they have paid you what they were. But when you separate the time and the money, it can be great for evening out those bumps. But in the moment, it can feel like you're not getting any money from doing the session. And that's where you can get that client dissatisfaction, because you're not treating them as valuably as a client who comes in and hands money over at the same time.
Yeah, same thing with any of these, model calls or mini shoots, or, some of those discounted session types. If you treat them like they aren't a full paying customer, they're always going to feel like she didn't really care. She said it was going to be 2 weeks to get my images back, but I didn't get them back for 6 weeks. If you are unprofessional in any way, they're never going to come back to you for anything, because they're always going to be like, and maybe they'll come back to you for another mini shoot, maybe, but you have to be, you have to have that great experience no matter who they are and what they paid. The other thing that I wanted to say, another option is you can create, year-long clients that maybe you have like, 1 week every month that you allow people to come in and have like a milestone shoot for their babies. Every single month they can come in, and then you have them pay a monthly membership fee. The only problem with that is that sometimes people want to pay it up front. And if they do pay it up front, you're in that same boat. I have one client who, she hires me for 4 sessions every year. I give her a discount because she does 4 sessions, but she always wants to pay for all of it. And by the time we get to that last shoot, I love it when she pays for the year. It's great. Here's a whole bunch of money for our year. But I forget about it. And then the last shoot of the year, I'm like, oh, I got to do these photo shoots for this client, and she's not even paying me. Yes, she is. She already paid me. She paid me handsomely.
Doesn't feel like you're getting paid for it. And I think that connects with what we've talked about before. And it kind of comes back around to what we said about the headshots. If you really don't want to do this thing, don't offer it at a discount. It's not the client's fault if you offer to do a thing that you're going to be annoyed to do, right? Because you offered it. It's your fault if that happens. So if you're really going to struggle, if you're really, or maybe try separating money from time, but if you find that it is too hard for you to do that, then don't offer that anymore, because you've got to get each client like a VIP. Like, there can't be different classes of clients that you work with.
Well, and the other thing I would say is that if you are super strapped for cash, and the thought of like a new $20 subscription is like overwhelming, don't take big deposits that maybe are going to have to be refunded. Because even though it's like this great thing in the moment, you're taking all these deposits and blah blah blah. What if you have another 2020? What if all of your weddings get canceled and you have to refund all those things? I don't like when someone pays up front for something big, because then it's like, well, what if they lose the baby? What if something happens and they, change their mind, and I got to now refund this $2,500 package? It's so I always try to like have this awareness of how much money out in my account right now would I have to refund if everyone canceled?
Right.
Or if I had to cancel everyone? What if I had, you know, a medical emergency and couldn't do the rest of their shoots? Like, you know, so I think that sometimes having sort of like a monthly payment versus a lump sum is a really nice way to go, because one, it guarantees you income every month, but two, it protects you from that. Like, you took this big, huge deposit that maybe you have to refund, you know? So as you're thinking about how do I get all this money in, be leery and aware that you are still responsible to do those photo shoots and do them well. So you can't guarantee these things take all their money and then just kind of like phone it in. You have to still give them a great experience.
Yeah, for sure. I think that probably has covered all the things that I think about for the overwhelm roller coaster of January. I think it can be the first year it happens to you, it can be a bit of a gut punch, because you think you're going to be quiet, and you are quiet, and and yet you still don't have time to get all the work done. I also think not to discount the feeling that when you've been very busy in your fall season, and then you've had a busy like Christmas time with your family, you naturally want to, and probably should, go a little slower for a while. If you don't have to be going at top speed, your body maybe needs that time to catch up. But if you set your goals for what you were going to do based on how fast you were moving in October, you might not be able to keep up with the goals that you set yourself for getting things done in your business. So just being aware of how you personally move up and down in the seasons of your life and your business.
I think just understanding that everything is going to take 10 times longer than you think it is too, because you're going to have some sort of tech issue. You're going to have a kid that gets sick and has to come home from school, and you're going to have some sort of sickness yourself because you've been working your butt off all season, and it's, you know, January and everybody's got the flu and all the things. So it's always going to take longer than you think it is. But the more organized you are, and, you know, the more time you give yourself to get these things done, the better off you're going to be. And then, you know, maybe you get it done early and then you can move on to the next thing. But that's never happened to me.
No, either. Well, but one of the things I was going to say was that when it comes to the fact that you have to continually be marketing, I think one thing that really helps is to block a bit of time on your calendar, like as a client, for marketing each week. And we do that with our business, that when we're not meeting for this, we often spend this hour on a Monday working on this business together. Because I find if you don't schedule the time like it's an external client project, you ditch it.
It just doesn't. Weeks go by, you get nothing done. It's so hard to keep up with it, and all of a sudden you're at the end of the year and you're like, oh my gosh, it's a new year all over again. And when you look back, you didn't get nearly as much stuff done as you wanted to.
But even scheduling some time so that you know, well, at least I will post once a week on Instagram, or at least I will have a blog a month, you know, like, don't make an unrealistic goal for what it is, but set yourself an amount of time a week that you can commit to. Maybe it's at the weekends if it has to be to begin with, if you're really busy. But if it's just an hour at the weekend, maybe that's doable. And then if you're drip feeding your marketing all the way through the year, at the very least, that gives clients an opportunity to know who you are and see you, and potentially spot a post and say, oh yeah, that's right, that's who I wanted to get in touch with. So
yeah, and as much as you can schedule or use templates for or anything, like, that's what Jill and I are here for, is creating those templates for you guys that make it so that it's really a Mad Libs plug and play, and you can just go, yeah, okay, in the spring I want to do this one, and in the summer I want to do this one, in the fall I want to do this one, in the winter I want to do that one. And you've got 4 big campaigns that you can reuse all, you know, throughout the years on different clients. This year it's going to be newborn babies. Next year it's going to be maternity sessions and everything in between, you know. So that's our goal, right? To make those things really feel like they are very, very easy, and it's just a matter of filling in your own details.
Yeah, definitely. Once you know what that is, spend the time on thinking about your business, and then we'll give you the bits to fill in the blanks.
Yeah, and the more you know your business, the easier it is too. Like, if you know who you are and who you're looking for, it's so easy to come up with those ideas. When you're lost and you do a little bit of everything, that's when it's hard. So that would be my big takeaway or homework for everyone, is just like, if you don't know who you are, go figure it out. Like, write down your dream clients, and if you could only do one, what would it be? You know, maybe you do really like everything, and some people do, but usually there's 1 or 2 things that you're like, I like everything, but this is what I really truly thrive at.
Yeah, definitely. Excellent. All right. Well, talking of organizing our businesses, we should go and do that for ourselves.
Yeah.
And then we will be back next month. We have not figured out a plan of what we're going to talk about. So if anyone has any ideas, let us know.
Yeah.
See you next month.
All right. Bye.